jungle, baby! You're gonna die! Wow!
Have any of you guys ever been to the Hard Rock Cafe? That place it's a cafe, right? But it's a hard rock cafe. You have to walk in doing the devil horns and banging your head. It's not like one of those cafes where you go and you sip coffee and you read a book or, work on your laptop. You don't wear glasses and write poetry and stare longingly across the cafe at someone you have a crush on. You're probably wearing a cardigan, some corduroy pants. And, it's just a quiet, peaceful place. Maybe they're playing classical music or jazz or something like that. That's not the type of cafe the Hard Rock Cafe is. The Hard Rock Cafe is a place where, they got guitars on the walls and, I don't know, maybe a guitar pick that Eddie Van Halen used. And, some spandex that Axl Rose wore. Maybe Slash's hat. That's the kind of place the Hard Rock Cafe is, okay? It's kind of weird that there can be two kinds of cafes like that. Does the Hard Rock Cafe even serve coffee? I mean, I don't really think of it as a place where you go to drink coffee. It's like, you'd probably go there and order a beer, right? And get some, I don't know, hamburger and fries, maybe a steak. There's also cafeterias in high school that are nothing like the cafes you go to drink coffee, right? So are there basically two kinds of cafes? I don't really understand what that word means, cafeteria and cafe. Seems like a cafe, the kind like you imagine being in like Paris and where they're drinking espresso with their pinky in the air, from a little tiny cup. Is that the same thing as a cafeteria like you have in high school where you eat school lunches? Are they the same? Are they related words? I don't know. I haven't really looked into this that much, but yeah, it's like kind of a weird split going on there, right? Where there's two different kinds of cafes where you got just totally different foods being served in a totally different atmosphere. I guess the Hard Rock Cafe is going more for like the high school, lunch eating place type of cafeteria, right? Except that, it's for adults who are into, AC/DC. And maybe they're wearing a really tight shirt over their beer belly and some tight jeans. Maybe they got some long hair. Some of those dudes, they got long hair even though they're pretty bald on top. Which is kind of a cool look, actually, right? That's like saying, I just don't give a fuck, That's pretty admirable in that way. I got respect for those dudes. I'm always the type of guy who's thought, if I start balding really noticeably, I'm just going to shave my head. But maybe actually going for that, bald on top but long everywhere else look is kind of cool too, right? It's kind of badass in a weird way. You guys know what a bayonet is, right? It's when you got a rifle of some sort. Maybe a semi-automatic or automatic rifle, or maybe not even an automatic, maybe an even old school rifle that shoots just like one shot at a time. I think they had bayonets on those too back in the day, right? It's just a knife on the end of your rifle, basically, that, if it comes down to, close combat, where you're like really up close to your enemy and you're not shooting anymore, you could stab them with your rifle. It's pretty brutal stuff there, but that just got me thinking of weapons, right? And how come you don't have a knife that has a gun attached to it? The opposite, you know what I mean? So like, maybe you start out like fighting close to someone and you got knives at each other. But then, like, you slowly back away from each other. Maybe you get scared because the knives are really sharp and you're bleeding or something. But then you should have another option, right, at that point. Because the knife is no longer of use. Maybe you could throw it, but the odds of it hitting the person and actually stabbing them is pretty low, right? So probably better off keeping it in your hand because you might just lose it and the other person might grab it and then you have nothing. So they need to invent a weapon where it's like a knife, right? But then there's a gun on top of it. So when you get a good distance from your opponent or your enemy or whatever, your rival, you got the option of using the gun that's attached to the knife. And yeah, you can just pew pew from there. Might be a little bit awkward to use a knife with a gun attached to it, but I think you could get used to it. They could probably develop techniques for it. It could become a whole new sphere of weaponry, you know, that's just kind of untapped. I don't know why they haven't really looked into this. I don't think I've seen such a weapon before. Maybe it exists and I'm just not aware of it. But as far as I know, this is a new idea that I invented. So, I don't know, I should probably file a patent or something or get some kind of credit if they make this into a real thing and start making money from it, right? I don't even want like all the money that's generated from it. I just want some of the credit because to me that's important for some reason, you know. It's like if I put in the thought and someone capitalizes on that, I want to get some of the credit for that, you know? And some of the money too, of course. If anyone out there has a good idea for what to call this weapon, I mean, you can't call it a bayonet because it's kind of like the opposite of a bayonet. It's not the opposite, it's like the inverse or the reverse. I'm not sure the converse of a bayonet. I'm not sure the etymology of bayonet, but probably something similar for a gun on a knife, right? What would you call that? The little gun on a knife. And lastly, this is an important topic. It's very germane to current events. I need to talk about inflation. Inflation is, you know, it's screwing all of us really hard right now. Like, we're just helpless against it. And, you know, it's like, even if you got a raise recently, it's almost like useless in the face of this kind of inflation. You know, those old pictures of the Depression where people were going to, like, buy groceries with a wheelbarrow full of just pretty much worthless paper money. It's kind of the point we're reaching right now. You know, you get paid $1 million a year salary, it's almost worthless at this point. With this kind of inflation, you know, we're paying like $10 a gallon for gas, $5 for a loaf of bread. And, you know, the inflation hasn't even stopped yet. It's still going. It's just rising like every day. And, you know, that's what happens when your money is based on nothing, basically. It used to be based on gold. I think then it was based on petroleum. I'm not sure what it's based on now. Now it's just based on, you know, hope and dreams. And people lose hope and faith and they stop dreaming about your money, then it becomes worthless no matter how much they print, right? I mean, why even have a bank account at this point? Just put all your money in your apartment. No one's going to come and steal it because they got just as much of this crap in their apartment, right? So what do you do in this situation? We got all this money. What the fuck do we do? Like, we just, you know, we keep getting raises, but the raises are worthless because the inflation is so bad. Pretty soon we're going to just have to start building our own country or something and building a new currency that's based on something real like gold. And we're going to have to start producing stuff again. Like, we're going to have to start baking bread and building houses and, you know, crafting pottery and stuff like that to eat and drink out of. It's going to be like kind of going back to the old days before, you know, the electricity and the internet and all that. It's going to be like, we're going to kind of be like the Amish or something. Or even the Mennonites if you prefer them. I don't know why you'd have a preference. They seem pretty similar to me, but if you do have a preference over, when it comes to Amish and Mennonites, then you pick, which one you like better. Or we don't even have to make it like them at all, because they're religious and I'm not, so I wouldn't particularly want that in my lifestyle. And they're not the only types of people who live that traditional lifestyle either, right? I think there are probably like Orthodox Jewish people who are like that. Maybe Buddhists. Hindus, maybe. Maybe Taoists. And Confucianists. And Animists. Animism's pretty badass, I think. I think I'd go for that if I had to choose a religion. But anyway, that's getting a little bit far off the mark. Talking about inflation here, right? So what are they going to do to fix this? They keep donating a bunch of money to Ukraine for this shitty war, pretty pointless war that we shouldn't be involved in. The US should just pull out of all of its stupid wars and focus on itself. Focus on building this country, the infrastructure, food, healthcare, shit like that. And yeah, that's what's going to bring an end to inflation is if the US stops trying to, rule the world and just focuses on improving itself. That's my main message for this whole episode. Thank you for listening, and I'm gonna talk to you next week. See you later. Bye.